Can you think of a time where you were totally grateful that you had somebody who was there for you? Somebody who was in your corner? Somebody who celebrated with you or maybe came and consoled you? Somebody who was with you in the good times and the tough times? In this episode of Conversations Over Coffee, we're going to look at what it means to have deep-spirited friendships. So as we unpack this whole concept of deep-spirited friendships, what I want to do, and I want us to have a look in the book of Exodus, the second book of the Bible, and I want us to open up and have a look at Moses and what was important, what a lesson we can learn from Moses. Now Moses at that stage was leading the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery, through the wilderness towards the Promised Land. While they were in the wilderness, the Amalekite army attacked the Israelites. And so Moses sent one of his mates, his warrior mates, Joshua, to lead the men into the war. And he said to them, I'm going to be standing on the hill with the staff of God while you're fighting, and I'm going to be interceding and praying to our God while you fight. And so we pick up the story from Exodus in chapter 17 and verse 10. So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron and Hur climbed to the top of a nearby hill. As long as Moses held up the staff in his hands, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became so tired he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood each side of Moses, holding up his hands. So his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of the Amalek in battle. See, Aaron and Hur lifted Moses' arms up through the tough times. When Moses got tired, Aaron and Hur, his mates, were standing alongside him, with him, holding his arms up. Here's a question for you. Who holds your arms up in difficult times? In those challenging times in your life, who stands alongside you? In the good times of life, who's celebrating with you? Who are those people in your world, what I would call deep-spirited friendships, who walk alongside you? Who are you a deep-spirited friend with? Where you get to walk alongside them and encourage them, cheer them on, hold their arms up, do what it is to be a true friend. You know, for the past 20 years, I have regularly made it a habit to have people in my world that I meet with to do this for me and so that I can be for them, these deep-spirited friendships. I've invited men in my world, one or two, where I gather together regularly, weekly, and we either have a coffee together or we might have brekkie together, and we do life in a real way. We meet regularly and we share the depths of life together. We share the good times and we celebrate together. We share the tough times and we mourn and we talk together. The highs and the lows. We care deeply for one another, and we care deeply that God has his best for that other person. And we pray together with them. And we give each other permission to be real. We give each other permission to ask the hard questions. We've built enough trust over time where we get to be very open and honest with one another. We get to be real with one another. Why do I do this? Because the Bible continues to tell me, that God continues to talk about these deep-spirited friendships. In Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 17 we read, as a friend is always loyal and a brother is born to help in times of need. We read that the important part of relationships is being there for one another. And then in Proverbs chapter 27, a little bit further on in Proverbs 27 verse 17, we read, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. Don't you love that? We sharpen one another as we do life together, as we allow people into our worlds that we trust. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul writes about the importance of coming together and encouraging one another when he writes a letter to the Romans. And in Romans chapter 1 and verse 12, he says, when we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith, but I also want to be encouraged by yours. He's saying when we come together, let's talk, let's encourage one another in our faith. Jesus, in his teachings, continues to talk about how vitally important it is for us to gather together, to do life together. He talks about big gatherings, but he also talks about coming together in smaller groups where we can be real, where we can do life together. Why do we do this? Well, because it creates this opportunity for us to share community together. It creates an opportunity for us to be real with one another. It creates an opportunity for us to pray together with one another. It creates an opportunity to be accountable, to bring encouragement, to bring rebuke and challenge and ask the hard questions, to strengthen one another, to support one another. It also helps me to keep my eyes off myself. It helps me to look beyond me, the lives of others. So, who would have your best interest at heart? Who is it in your world that you would love to have involved in this with you? To read maybe together, or maybe you decide you're going to read the Bible through the week, and then when you sit down together you share what you're learning, to pray for one another, to bring God's reflection to one another as well. Who lifts your arms up? Who's your Aaron and your Ham? Who stands with you in the tough times and celebrates with you in the good times? Do you have deep-spirited friendships? Can I encourage you, if you don't, think about who those people might be for you. In your world right now, who might be appropriate and right for you to ask to invite into that space? Here's a couple of questions for you as you consider that. What would be important for you to have? What's an important value for you to have as a deep-spirited friend? And what would you be looking for in deep-spirited friendships? And maybe a really important question to ask is, what's stopping you right now of having deep-spirited friendships, of inviting people into this space? I would love to continue this conversation and maybe even unpack a little bit more of what's stopping you and what you're looking for. So in the comments below in this YouTube, why don't you start to type in some of the things that you would like to see, like to have as a deep-spirited friendship, but also what's stopping you. I'd love to engage in conversation on this YouTube channel right now, or maybe even via email or via my social medias. I'd love to continue the conversation. This is really important. I totally believe that we can be our best when we have people around us walking with us. So who's going to be your deep-spirited friendships? God bless.